for risking your reputations by inviting me to speak here today. And congrats to the class 2022 and all that you've accomplished. We're going to talk a bit about that. A few weeks back, I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Amelie, and I asked her about the themes she thought would resonate most with the class of 2022 here at Pingree. The first theme she mentioned was community, and in a school like Pingree, that's no real surprise to any of us, right? What makes this school special is the fact that there's a combination of talent, academic, athletic, artistic, mixed with open-mindedness to cross over to learn about the disciplines we don't know much about. Artists playing sports, athletes playing music or appearing in a school play, a straight-A student suddenly using a bit too much hand pressure and collapsing their would-be bowl on the pottery wheel. The ability to empathize deeply and cross over is what makes Pingree come alive. The second word she used struck me, and it was because I had already started writing the speech for today, and the word she used was largely right at the center of it. It's a word that represents a fulfilling life, a way to establish sustained success. If you can learn how to manufacture this word in your life, you become an unstoppable force. If I rewind the film on my life to date, from my childhood growing up as a river rat in East Saugus, to my truly illuminating social and academic experiences here at Pingree and then up north at Bowdoin, to my current state as a father and husband, glory days era athlete, rapper, as you've all been introduced to already. We're going to get more into that, don't worry about it. An executive leader at a local technology company, there is one underlying theme that paved the way for me to pursue the next chapter. It's the one word I owe everything to. Without it, I wouldn't have met my wife Colleen, and we wouldn't have our daughters Layla and Kaylee. Without it, I'm not sure I would have come to Pingree at all. I may not have known it existed. Without it, I am confident I would not be in a leadership role and would not be learning anymore. The word Amelie mentioned to me is perseverance. Now, the Oxford Dictionary definition of perseverance is persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. Thomas Edison once said during his quest to create the electric light bulb, "I have not failed, I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work." During Edison's school years, his teachers surmised he was too stupid to learn anything. He was fired from his first 2 paying jobs for a lack of productivity. And yet, he persevered and learned early on that failure was not only a part of the process, it was the quintessential ingredient to developing the solution. The common thread of ultimate success. Edison knew that by doing hard things, things that seemed impossible to the average person, he would persevere and ultimately achieve. Now, I know what today is to you. It's a well-earned celebration of all you've accomplished in your time here at Pingree. The wins on the field, the ice, the court, the dance routines, the songs sung, the scenes acted, the art displayed, the boats built, the clay kilned, the books read, the papers written, the math and science problems solved, the exams passed and the college acceptance letters received, or the gap year trip booked. You have done so much. But I would like to focus on why I think this class has an advantage over the 57 graduating classes that came before it here at Pingree. Every single one, including mine from 1998. See, somewhere smack dab in the middle of your teenage years, the world decided to introduce you and 7.9 billion of your closest friends to the first global pandemic in more than a century. Everything you had learned to this point in your life as it related to learning, socializing, shopping for toilet paper, all of it was completely disrupted. Worse, it was disrupted without a clear line of sight as when the disruption would end. When will we get together in person again? When were the Bruins or Celtics going to play again? When can I go visit my grandparents? And here we are 2 years and 3 months later, and all of you have the distinction of being the first class since 2019 to graduate under relatively normal circumstances. Can you feel it? It's palpable. It's different. There's a community sense of relief, of achievement, of powering through what is likely the most psychologically daunting period in your lives to date. You have overcome more as a collective class than the graduating classes before you. You've done a hard thing, a very hard thing. It has made you more mentally resilient than you were in February of 2020. You were faced with a global pandemic, have probably learned new skills, played new games, were forced into solitude when you would have been surrounded by others, and you've come out a more hardened and capable version of you. See, hardship, if used properly, is a gift. It fuels growth. People who do hard things become hard people. They become malleable, resilient, conscious people with an insatiable growth mindset. They achieve difficult goals and thus set new standards for both themselves and those around them. In all honesty, it took me about 20 years since sitting in the same seat as you to truly learn how doing hard things and persevering through them could help someone grow significantly as a person. But now it's become the standard. It's a preferred way of life. My belief is that every single one of you here today will benefit if you choose harder paths, to get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's the greatest gift you can give yourself. Let me share an example. About 9 months ago, I chose to participate in an event known as the Last Man Standing. This event is technically classified as an ultramarathon, which would be anything longer than a marathon distance, but it's based on a very simple premise. Beginning at noon on Saturday, September 4th, 2021, in the woods at Pineland Farms in New Gloucester, Maine, a field of 89 men and women set out to complete a 4.2-mile lap every hour, on the hour, for as long as they could go. These 4.2-mile loops are known in the backyard ultra word as yards. So if you complete a loop, you earn a yard. If you complete a yard quickly, you get to rest for a while, take a break. If it takes you 59 minutes, you have 1 minute to gather yourself, walk over to the start line for your next attempt. If you either fail to get to the start line for the next hour, or it takes you longer than an hour to complete the yard, you're disqualified. By the design of the race, there is only one winner. Every other participant is labeled as a DNF by the race coordinator, as in did not finish. Now let's level set a bit here. I have never, would never, and will never classify myself as an endurance runner. As of 4 years ago, the longest distance I had run was a half marathon, and that was only once. And I walked for a good part of the last 2 miles when I did it. And then I cramped up on the sidelines during my daughter's soccer game right after it. So yeah, I'm not a distance guy here. It is very much a forced activity. There wasn't a lot of time spent on the hills in the mud and the manure scent at Pingree. So why, after 38 years spent on this spinning bucket of water and dirt, would I suddenly start to seek out longer and longer runs? Well, it's for the same reason you kept applying to colleges after getting rejected by your first choice. It's the same reason you chose to seek out help from a teacher here at Pingree after getting a low score in an exam. It's the same reason you returned to the field after an injury, and it's the same reason you continued acting out the scene after forgetting your lines in the play. It's the ability to attack a situation, fail, reassess, re-engage based on what you've learned, and attempt to drive a different outcome. That is perseverance. That's what drove me to sign up, is the pursuit of the uncomfortable. 4 yards and 16.8 miles in, the uncomfortable was certainly settling in. The first signs of trouble came at the end of loop 5, because I didn't have to pee. And in the endurance world, I had read that that was a foreshadowing of very dark times ahead. And this was in spite of the fact I had been drinking 18 ounces of Pedialyte every loop, plus drinking water, coconut water, eating fruit in between. But the devil known as dehydration began to nip at my heels. But I was okay. Finish the next loop, just keep going. One more. Now in the running world, there's a term they use for hitting a wall where your glycogen stores are completely depleted, your muscles fatigue to the point that it alters your stride significantly and the body starts to burn fat for fuel. It's called bonking. I bonked during my 9th loop. I had almost nothing left, but I made my wife and daughters promise me on the ride up to Maine that if I was physically able to begin another loop, they would help me get to the start line and I would go. My goal going into the day was that my body would physically fail me before my mind would let me quit. About halfway through loop 10, I experienced another common endurance race symptom, hallucination. A flock of white doves flew up from the ground into the trees. Yet I knew exactly where I was and what I was doing. I was fully present, which also made me aware that I was dangerously close to a pace that wouldn't allow me to finish that loop. So I picked it up as fast as my body would allow, managed to get myself across the finish line for loop 10 with about 2 minutes to spare. At that point, my speech was slurred and I could no longer pick my feet up to shuffle. I sat down in a chair after 10 hours and 42 miles, and as if someone had pushed an off switch, instantly fell asleep. The next morning, I went for a short walk outside our hotel in Freeport just to loosen up my legs. Now, physically, it was uncomfortable. My feet were swollen, toenails black. Every fiber of muscle had been stretched, ripped, was undergoing repair. But mentally, man, the feeling of accomplishment I had unlocked, because I had unlocked a new level of myself that I'd never met before. That is special. I believe it's the most special gift any human being can give themselves. The gift of growth. The gift of unlocking new levels of your own potential. The gift of perseverance. As you embark on the newest chapters in your life story, I implore you to do hard things. Get comfortable with uncomfortable. Seek out events, jobs, contests, and projects that stretch the limits of your current abilities. That's where you find growth. Now, to demonstrate doing hard things live, and to commemorate being one of the founding members of Pingree's first official rap group called Cloud9, I'm going to end my speech in a non-traditional way. I'm going to rap it, because it's uncomfortable, and I hope that you remember the message because of it. If you remember one thing, it's do hard things to make your soul sing. It crowns queens and kings and all ranks and rings and brings an oath to fuel growth by persevering. If you remember one thing, Pingree class of 22 is do hard things and break through. Find a new standard, push for new limits. Congrats on a great 4 years, now go get it.